What in the world was I going to do now? Never in a million years would I believe Kent and Emily were not my children, much less believe Dawn was involved in an affair lasting the length of our marriage. Frank was correct that this was devastating news. One thing for sure is they would pay dearly for this. I would teach them how well I play hardball. Steve and Frank sat there watching my emotions change from shock, disbelief, confusion, sadness, loneliness, loss, anger, rage, and eventually determination. I don't know how long I paced. Time just seemed to stand still. Now I know why Frank came to St. Louis and brought Steve with him. They were there to support me as well as make sure I didn't do anything stupid. After I got control, we discussed my options and goals. I told them all 6 of those losers would pay big time for this. We got very little sleep and I was glad they were with me. Without them, I don't know how I'd have been able to drive. Once we had the evidence, we would decide the most painful course of action against them. My divorce from Dawn would be very public and embarrassing for her. Yes, I know I'd be embarrassed too. Soon, everyone would know Emily and Kent had different fathers by my lying, cheating wife. In the state of Georgia, either party can file for a no-fault divorce. You file, wait 30 days, you're granted a divorce, and divide the marital assets. If you file for a divorce on grounds of adultery, it takes months to obtain a court date. Then you have to prove adultery occurred. I really wanted to take Dawn to court on charges of adultery and drag them out the process. However, Steve, Frank, and Dave convinced me to go after a no-fault divorce. It would be quicker and cheaper. I'd still be able to embarrass Dawn and her gang. I just had to decide when, where, and how. Back in Atlanta, Steve, Frank, Dave, and I met in Frank's conference room to discuss what we knew, what we needed to find out, and how to make them pay. Hey Frank, did Dawn do anything wrong while I was in St. Louis? No, Dawn didn't do anything or have any phone conversations that were inappropriate. Frank continued, we traced the gang of 6 back the past 5 years. 2 of the gang always reserved connecting rooms, but not the same 2 each time. Most of the time all 6 were there and sometimes it varied. There were times when one of the women would be there with the 3 guys. There were always at least 4 of some combination. This wasn't what I wanted to hear. I slammed my fist on the table, shouting that lying, cheating woman will pay. Frank, find out everything you can about the gang of 6, including Dawn. Clearly, I didn't know the woman. I want to know if they are married. How long do they have children? In the case of the women, were their children fathered by their spouse? Do they all work for the same company where they lived, and anything else you could find out? Armed with Dawn's schedule, Frank knew when and where the next class was scheduled. This gave Frank time to develop contacts, devise a plan to plant cameras and bugs in their hotel rooms. Yes, I know this couldn't be used in court, but I was going after a no-fault divorce. I needed information. One thing I learned from Dawn's calendar, she had 3 classes scheduled between now and our 25th wedding anniversary. Our 25th wedding anniversary will be on a Sunday, and Dawn will end a class in Orlando on the Friday before it. I looked at the group and said, I want this shit to end the last day of class before our anniversary. I'll not celebrate our anniversary with her, and she will not like her gift. Gentlemen, this is when I stop being a cuckold to my lying, cheating wife, and she starts paying for 24 years of being a lying, cheating. This is where I turn my pain into their nightmare. Dawn will regret the day she met me. I owe her for being lied to each and every day for the past 24 years. A week later, we were in Dave's conference room being updated by Frank, George C. Thomas of Richmond, Virginia, Henry S. King of Little Rock, Arkansas, Charles K. Nixon of Columbia, South Carolina, Joyce D. Hopkins of Miami, Florida, Catherine G. Williams of Knoxville, Tennessee, and Dawn made up the gang of 6. They all worked for the same corporation and met in a new employee training program over 24 years ago. Wednesday following Dawn's last class found Frank, Steve, Dave, and I around a conference table. Dawn and Henry had the connecting rooms last week in Washington, D.C., and all 6 were there. We learned the 2 with connecting rooms slept together. The affair took place only in the connecting rooms. Discovered the women were all bisexual. On Saturday they drew cards. The highest male and women were the ones who reserved the connecting rooms next time. George and Joyce won and will reserve the connecting rooms in San Diego. The woman, Dawn this time with the connecting room, got to have the first foursome with the men. With the exception of the connecting rooms, everybody was spread out on different floors of the hotel. You never saw a woman go into or exit a man's hotel room, and they never exited from the connecting rooms at the same time. During the week, they had meals with others from the class. If you were not looking for something, you would never know these people were involved with each other. They spent a lot of time with their classmates during the day and early evening. Around 10 p.m., they would start drifting to the connecting rooms. Sometime after 2 a.m., they would start back to their own rooms. The only exceptions to this were Saturday and Thursday nights, where all 6 of them stayed all night in the connecting rooms. All of their discussions and interactions outside of the connecting rooms were like normal business associates. They discussed where they stayed, where they ate, ball games they went to, plays they saw, what their children were doing, about their vacations and their spouses. I guess after 24 years it's easy to hide what's going on from the rest of the world. Once again, Frank's agents went in with the cleaning crews. Since the sex was confined to the connecting rooms, collecting and identifying hair and fingerprint samples for each person was simplified. We took sheets from each room for analysis, as well as taking samples from the women's soiled panties. Armed with the DNA evidence, we were able to identify George as Emily's sperm donor and Chuck as Ken's sperm donor. Watching all of the unprotected sex they had, there was no way Dawn could know who was the father of her children. George C. Thomas of Richmond, Virginia, has been married for 24 years and has 2 adult children, all living in the Richmond area. George and his wife will find out shortly that George has another daughter. Henry S. King of Little Rock, Arkansas, has been married for 23 years and has 21-year-old twin sons. Charles K. Nixon of Columbia, South Carolina, married his high school sweetheart. They have been married for 25 years and have a son. Chuck is about to discover he is the father of another son. Joyce D. Hopkins of Miami, Florida, is married and will celebrate her 25th wedding anniversary next month. Joyce is the mother of a son 23 years old and a daughter 21. Catherine G. Williams of Knoxville, Tennessee, has been married for 23 years and has 2 daughters and a son. Everyone in the gang of 6 has been married for over 23 years and appears to be as happy as I thought I was before discovering my wife is a lying, cheating woman. What we would like to know is if any of the 3 men is the father of any of Joyce's or Catherine's children. Odds are they are the biological father to at least one of their children. I bet their spouses would like to know the answer to that question. Frank hopes to know this by next Wednesday. How he plans to find out, I don't have a clue. Wednesday at Dave's office was a short meeting. First, Frank told us the Orlando class is only a 3-day class. Can you believe it? She plans on spending Thursday and Friday getting screwed before our anniversary. That woman doesn't have any respect for me at all. After giving me time to calm down, Frank said, Bierman, you're not the only spouse with children fathered by another man. Henry is the biological father of Joyce's daughter and Catherine's son. George and Chuck are the sperm donors for Catherine's 2 daughters. Can you believe it? Joyce is the only woman to have at least one of her children fathered by her spouse. Henry is the biological father of Joyce's daughter and Catherine's son. George is the biological father of Emily and one of Catherine's daughters. Chuck is the biological father of Kent and one of Catherine's daughters. Man, I need a flowchart. I guess because I know my marriage is over, and I've gone through the stages of grief, I'm able to act like a loving husband. This has become a game for me. Acting like a loving husband while plotting the destruction of Dawn, my lying, cheating woman, soon-to-be ex-wife, has been entertaining. I figure if she can lie to my face for over 24 years, surely I can fake being a loving, caring, dumb husband for a few months. Frank's team would go through the same procedures in San Diego as they did in Washington. We would review the tapes and evidence collected to see if we were missing something. We believed everything would be the same as Washington. To say I was looking forward to Orlando and turning their world into a nightmare is an understatement. Since it was going to be a 3-day class in Orlando, all 6 of them planned to attend. 2 days of fucking without their peers around was very exciting to them. Dawn proved she didn't give a damn about our anniversary by staying with her fuck buddies instead of rushing home to the one she loves. What they didn't know, I was going to be their Wednesday afternoon instructor. I'd conduct the last hour of the class while all of the students were still there to witness the gang of 6 public exposure and destruction. Dave Ford and his staff had all the information they needed to prepare the legal documents. He promised me everything I needed would be ready on time. Frank would have his staff on site and monitoring the gang members. Showtime was approaching. Dave, Frank, Steve, and I worked through how to handle their exposure. The stage was set. Now I was ready for my turn at bat. Saturday after Dawn left, I called the gang of 6 spouses. I told them I wanted to surprise my wife in Orlando for a combination 25th wedding anniversary and 25 years with the company. Since their spouses started with the company at the same time my wife did, I think it would be fun for them to be there. This was my treat. There would be an airline ticket at the gate waiting for them. I told Kent and Emily about surprising their mother on Wednesday and invited them to meet me in Orlando on Tuesday. Tuesday night I met with my children and told them everything. I spent hours going over how I found out what evidence I had, how I planned on destroying their mother's world tomorrow, and how much I loved them. I told them I'm not your biological father, but you are my children, and I'd always be your father. We cried and held on to each other. They asked a lot of questions, and I answered them truthfully without sugarcoating my answers. I asked them not to warn their mother, which they both promised me they wouldn't. Looking into their eyes, I said, I want you both to be there tomorrow when I confront and embarrass the hell out of your mother. This is a lot to ask of you, and I'm sorry if I embarrass you. The fact you are not my biological children will be all over the Atlanta papers by this weekend, so we all will be embarrassed. You will see me being a bastard to your mother and her fuck buddies. My goal is to scare the shit out of them and make the rest of their lives a living hell. If you go, you will hear me say almost anything to embarrass them. Nothing I say will change the way I feel about you. You are both adults, so I cannot adopt you. I would if I could, but know from the bottom of my heart, I love you and consider you to be my children. You are free to choose whether you will be there. After all, she is your mother. You do not have to decide right now. Take time to think it through and make your own decision. Remember, I love you now and for always. With tears in his eyes, Kent asked, Dad, I know Mom loves you and you love her. Can you forgive her and move on? Why can't you and Mom go to counseling and work through this? Asked Emily. I looked at my children while trying to gain control of my temper. How do you answer in a calm, reasoning way unbelievable questions? Taking a deep breath. I know as children you always want your parents to stay together and always be there for you. Please close your eyes and let me take you on a journey. You have met the perfect person and want to spend the rest of your life with them. You cannot bear being away from them any longer than required. After a fantastic honeymoon, you settle into your jobs and several years later, you have 2 fantastic children. You spend your time living for your family, going to soccer practice, soccer games, cheerleader camps, Girl Scouts through teenage years, romantic vacations, and dinners with your spouse, holding the people you love most in this world. Living to spend every minute with the ones you love. Going out of town at the last possible moment and returning as quickly as possible to your loving family. Every day you thank God for your family and the happiness they bring you. You are happy and feel blessed knowing your life can't get any better. Pausing and letting my statements soak in for a moment, they have smiles on their faces. Kent, you are watching a movie starring your lovely wife. She's in a hotel room with 3 men and 2 women. Each woman draws a card from a card deck. Your wife gets a huge smile on her face as she shows everyone her ace of spades. The 3 men start removing your wife's clothes, and the rest was history. Kent sat there with tears in his eyes while Emily sobbed, pausing a moment for them to think about what I said and to gain control of their emotions. At the end of the movie, as the film credits roll by, you learn this group has been making at least 4 movies a year for the past 24 years. We can go over to my laptop and access a video stream of them in a hotel room a mile from us right now making another movie. I've collected over 40 hours of tape of your mother and her gang from her last 3 trips. Kent, you discover you are not the biological father of your children. Or Emily, you discover your husband is the biological father of someone else's child. How would this make you feel? I took a breath and continued. The person you love most in this world is leaving you and their children a day early to meet a group of people so they can have an additional day of sex. Plus, they stay over another 2 days for sex. When your spouse comes home, they need 24 hours to recover before they can be with you, the one they claim to love. How much do you think they love, respect, and care for their spouses or children? Your mother not only disrespected and lied to me, she disrespected and lied to both of you. Kent, choking back tears, said, Dad, I never thought of it that way. You're right. I wouldn't want my wife to treat me that way either. I've never looked at it as Mom choosing to spend more time with that group over staying home with us, much less how devastating it has been for you. I love you. I don't know if I can be there for you tomorrow. I'll let you know. Dad, I'm so sorry for your pain. You can count on me. I'll be there for you tomorrow. Dad, thank you for being my father. I love you. Emily continued. Kent, get your head out of your behind. Mom chooses her screw buddies over us. You will be there with Dad and me tomorrow. Stand up and be a man. Talk about being blown away. Emily's reaction and outburst was a total surprise to me. The look on Kent's face was priceless. God, I love my children. Emily looked at me with fire in her eyes. What's the game plan for tomorrow? I've invited the gang of 6 spouses to join us tomorrow. Their spouses think I'm having a party for our 25th wedding anniversary. And since their spouses have been with Dawn all these years, I felt it appropriate for them to join in the fun. You and Kent are the only 2 I've told in advance. This will be a total surprise to everyone else. I want them to freely let their emotions flow and respond to their cheating spouses. I'll give them a copy of all the evidence I have. Before I forget, you have some half-brothers and sisters you may want to meet at a later date. All 5 of the other spouses showed up at the hotel where we met, got to know each other and had a nice lunch. At 2 p.m. we, including Kent, headed over to the hotel where Dawn's class was being held at. The rest of my surprise guests were waiting for us in the hotel lobby. An attorney from Dave Ford's office, a PI from Frank's staff, and a video camera operator were my other special guests. At 2:30, a florist delivered the 25 red roses I'd ordered. Emily and the other women commented on how nice they looked. Emily had fire in her eyes. She was ready for battle. I took a moment to calm her down and let her know I was running the show. At 2:45, we started through the lobby toward the meeting rooms. Emily was ready, Kent was following Emily's lead, and the spouses seemed caught up in the excitement. With the 25 roses, I entered Dawn's classroom at 3 p.m., followed by John manning the video camera. Dawn turned bright red seeing me approach her with the roses and a smile on my face. I commented on her face matching the roses, and everyone laughed at my little joke. Dawn smiled, then turned toward the class, and introduced me to them as JT, her husband. I looked out over the crowd identifying where the other 5 were seated. True to form, they were spread out across the classroom.